You're watching SABC News live from Johannesburg. Your headlines this hour. The Democratic Alliance says it is totally against the Expropriation Act on which President Cyril Ramaphosa signed for this week.
Water is another major challenge that we have to address, as water is life and sanitation is dignity.
Giving the party's deployees in government their marching orders, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has called on the ANC Lekgotla to set time frames for resolving the immediate challenges of water provision. The Department of Higher Education and Training says it is winning the battle against bogus colleges in the country and has warned future students to be cautious of bogus tertiary institutions. A very warm welcome to the week ahead. We are live with you from our SABC News studio here in Johannesburg for the next 2 hours. Good afternoon, I'm Lekgotla. If you'd like to participate, please give us a call to share your comment or ask a question. The number is right on your screen, 011-714-0680 or 81 or 82. As always, it's wonderful to have you with us. We'll start here. Resign if you don't want to implement the Expropriation Act that was signed by President Cyril Ramaphosa this week. That's the stern warning from ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile to Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure Dean McPherson, who has publicly declared his disapproval of the new act. Mashatile was delivering the keynote address at the ANC's 113th anniversary celebrations at Dumahule Parades in the Free State. He said the ANC was committed to the ideals of transforming the economy.
Mashatile has stressed that the new Expropriation Act will help close the inequality gap in the country, and he called on individuals who are allegedly trying to collapse the government of national unity to step back.
Minister McPherson, if you're not going to implement this law, please resign from the cabinet. No minister in our government will do as they wish. Haona ministera o tlo ikeletsang boithatelo mmusong wa rona. All ministers are appointed by the president and all of them are accountable to the president and they must implement the laws of this country.
The water crisis has also become a burning issue that the party says it will prioritize. Parades has been confronted by inconsistent water supply for years. Residents say they want the ANC to keep its promises.
I want changes because I want our children and grandchildren to get employment because our kids are struggling. They have children and depend on social grant. I have a child who has 9 certificates, but she's not working. We don't have water where we stay at Mandela. We are struggling.
The quality of services here, it's very poor. We are appealing to the ANC to improve.
Alliance partners have indicated their support for the new law. They also called on the ANC-led government to create jobs.
It is also our wish as the Federation to see all the progressive formations to discuss the scourge of teenage pregnancy and come with a solution. But the solution from the Federation is that we need to call, as a matter of urgency, a gender summit that will provide the solution to this scourge. We are also raising the concern that we need to move with speed to grow our economy so that jobs can be created.
Mashatile has instructed the ANC's provincial leadership to address factions and to continue to instill discipline in those who bring the party into disrepute. Aphumelele Mdlalane, SABC News, Paris.
Now, the Democratic Alliance says it is totally against the Expropriation Act. Rather, it says it has obtained a legal opinion that the new act is unconstitutional. Party leader John Steenhuisen says the ANC has diverted from the Government of National Unity agreements. He says the DA agreed to be part of the GNU to share power, not to be bullied by the ANC. Steenhuisen was addressing a media briefing in Cape Town on the DA's response to the Expropriation Act.
In keeping with our mature approach to coalition government, the Democratic Alliance is therefore urgently seeking to pursue a reset in this relationship. To do so, I yesterday wrote directly to President Ramaphosa to do the following things. To object in the strongest possible terms to the fact that he simply signed the Expropriation Act this week in contravention of a clear legal opinion and concerns submitted by the Minister of Public Works that the Act is in fact unconstitutional and could quite easily be remedied by sending it back to Parliament. Secondly, to note the DA's implacable opposition to the inclusion of the NHI, and particularly the proposals to start to move to eliminate private medical aid and the continued assault on the private healthcare sector in South Africa contained in the documentation of the Medium-Term Development Plan, with, of course, the accompanying budgetary implications of this. Bear in mind again, we are in government to see economic growth and job creation and an end to poverty in South Africa.
Now let's have a look at stories that made headlines in the Sunday newspapers. But joining us this afternoon is independent media's Siyabonga Sithole. Siyabonga, very good afternoon to you. Good to see you. A very busy week, very busy weekend, as you might have seen. Perhaps let's start with Sunday Times. They are reporting DA's GNU budget vote threat and saying that Steenhuisen rules out quitting GNU altogether, but insists a reset in relations is urgent. What do you make of that?
Well, it shows basically for me that the GNU in its formation was not put together with the right kind of people. The inclusion of the DA, everyone has spoken out against the inclusion of the DA, knowing very well that the DA it's opposed to basically what the ANC stands for. So basically, the same tensions we've seen with the Bella Act, the implementation thereof has been mired in a similar controversy that we've seen currently playing out as far as the expropriation bill that has been announced by the president on Thursday. I see it as the same thing that has been happening over the past 6 months of the GNU. Basically, the DA is calling the shots, saying all kinds of things just so that they can try to get their way and muscle themselves into some of these legislation. So basically, the DA itself is showing itself once again to be a force not for change, but for its own interest. It's basically that playing itself out over and over again. It's not going to change. Nothing much will change. They will always threaten. They will always threaten to pull out and basically try to find ways to muscle themselves out with these policies.
Yeah, interesting days ahead indeed regarding the Expropriation Act. Siyabonga, let's now jump on to the Sunday Tribune. I mean, they are leading with this story by Bongani Hans, headlined, ANC regions threaten legal action against NEC, and they are reporting there to say that ANC's National Executive Committee may face legal action if it proceeds with plans to dissolve the KZN and Gauteng provincial structures. That's one of the big stories there, Siyabonga. Yeah, it is a big story stemming from the fact that last week we learned of the position that had been taken by the NEC of the ANC. Instead of shutting down the structures or what they've done, they've sort of gone for a compromise, which is reconfiguration of the two structures, the KZN and the Gauteng one. So basically here we have some regions, especially in KZN, saying they are prepared to take the ANC to court should it implement the resolution of the NEC, which
basically tries to intervene in KZN. So in some regions, Lekgotla region wants to ensure that some of the people who will be announced soon, who will then be helping KZN renewal to be considered. Some have raised Dr. William Kize as their preferred candidate, and others want the ANC is reported to have chosen. So you are seeing those tensions playing out as well in KZN as part of the intervention that has been made. So basically here we are seeing that some regions are not happy with how the ANC tries to disguise dissolution as a reconfiguration.
I mean, let me just steal your thought here, Siyabonga. I mean, they're on a project, that renewal project is underway to try and regain that lost ground following last year's general elections. Do you think that this move here, this legal action that they might face within themselves is likely to sort of destabilize that particular effort?
Yes, if there's going to be legal that is going to be launched, it's going to destabilize. It's going to go against what the ANC wants to do to regain ground, because they've lost ground in KZN and nationally, as well as here in Gauteng. So basically, anything that is happening will be a sideshow against what the ANC wants to do, to renew and strengthen these regions, and hopefully contest next year much better than they did in the previous election, as well as the previous ones.
Yeah, and all details of that story in the Sunday Tribune. Siyabonga, let's now move on to the next newspaper headline. This is found in the Sunday World. It's written by Tshwarelo Eseng Mogakane. Headlining that story: top leader stands accused of sex scandal, rocks MK party. And just to give a bit of context on that story, a female member of the provincial legislature has written an explosive letter to Zuma accusing one of the top party's top 8 officials of victimizing her after she spanned his sexual advances.
Yes, it's a big one also as well for the MK party, as it to win itself over in Mpumalanga and in other regions as they try to build some of the structures. When you have an accusation such as this one involving a senior leader within the top 8 structure, we can only wonder, because the Sunday World has the name. We are not privy to the name as to who is that person, but we wonder what's going to happen as well. If they're going to take any drastic action against that particular leader, if they're going to be disciplined, because this does not bode well for the MK party because of the image and any negative publicity, especially in light of GVP, rape, and the sexual harassment case that we are seeing playing itself out at the public hearing. We are seeing if we're going to see something like this with the NK party, I mean, it could really trigger some sort of resistance from especially women.
Siyabonga, let me thank you for sharing your insights with us. We appreciate your time indeed, greatly appreciated. That was independent media, Siyabonga Sithole, talking about stories making headlines in Sunday newspapers today. Now to this, the ANC will hold day 2 of its Lekgotla this weekend, their second since the Government of National Unity was formed. Yesterday, a buoyant ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed to continue to unapologetically implement the party's policies in government. Ramaphosa, as head of state, signed the expropriation bill into law this week, which has anchored the ANC's Government of National Unity partner, the Democratic Alliance. He has also implemented the National Health Insurance and Bela Acts. Speaking at the ANC's Lekgotla in Captain Park, Ramaphosa also called on the party's deployees to put timeframes in place for resolving the water crisis that is rapidly expanding.
Even in the Government of National Unity, we have a clear obligation and a task to implement the policies and decisions and measures that seek to advance the national democratic revolution and, more importantly, to advance the interests of our people through the various decisions that we have taken, that we are taking, and that we will continue to take, be they related to education, be they related to health, be they related to the issue of land. These will be taken. Those who have been doubtful about the efficacy of our participation in the government of national unity, and even doubting whether we will be able to continue to execute the policies of our movement that are meant to advance the interests of our people, will have to see whether we are deviating or staying the course.
The Department of Higher Education and Training says it is winning the battle against bogus colleges in the country. At this time of the year, many students are trying to secure access to institutions of higher learning, and the department has advised prospective students not to fall prey to illegal institutions. Experts say students are not only scammed by bogus colleges, but also some online accommodation advertisers that order students to pay only to disappear into thin air once the payments are done.
The Department of Higher Education and Training says there are some red flags that a prospective student should look for when searching for a higher learning institution. Dr. Shahida Ezek say accreditation, registration, and the accommodation of that institution are some of the elements that will clearly paint a picture about the legitimacy of the school in question.
There is no letter of accreditation from a theatre, QCTO, no registration certificate from the department, if there is no proper infrastructure, if there's a lack of professionalism, if they don't ask you to sign contracts. So yes, those are the warning signs.
The South African Qualifications Authority, known as SAQA, say going to a bogus school and landing up with the fake certificate will definitely have adverse results on the learner. Nkosing Nyalungu says students need to ask for SAQA ID number and call the qualifications body to verify.
You need to check if the qualification is registered on a particular NQF level. So the most important thing to ask the institution is for them to provide you with the SAQA ID number. So with that SAQA ID number, it's unique for each and every institution when the qualification gets registered. So by getting that SAQA ID number, you can call us. We are able to verify if indeed that qualification is registered.
Crime experts say at this time of the year, as bogus colleges are working hard to lure students to these colleges, there are also other criminals who are also advertising accommodations online to scam students who are desperate for a place to stay.
This time of the year, in January and February, most of the students that do not reside at the campus of the university, most of them, they are looking for accommodations. So do not pay for any accommodation, even when they can send you photos or no matter how they can convince you. You need to physically go and inspect the particular accommodation before doing any payments.
Prospective students are urged to do their research.
What I can say is that the person must research about that school. The person must go and inquire more information, maybe in their teachers everywhere and around, just inquire, because really there are schools that have like a scam, like there are those schools that scam people. But what I can tell someone who wants a school now is that that person must just go and research, maybe on Google. The person must ask about it. The person must go, because VET, as I can tell, VET is one of the schools that is like everywhere. You can just ask people about it.
If someone can ask me if the school I'm promoting here is registered or not, I will say I don't know and advise that person to go to the school and ask.
Experts say promises of quick degrees, guaranteed job placements, or ridiculously low tuition fees are most likely to smoke and mirrors. Also, poorly designed website with grammatical errors, stolen images, or generic content are major red flags. The Department of Higher Education and Training says already they have received complaints of a scam from a student. Calvin Lekgotla, SABC News, Pretoria.
To this story now, Rand Water says completion of water pipeline maintenance is delayed. Estimated completion time is 6 o'clock this evening. The maintenance was to repair a leak that was detected on the O2 pipeline beneath Nasmith Road in Germiston, Ekurhuleni municipality. It was projected to affect water supply to the cities of Tshwane, Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg, as well as Madibeng local municipality. Joining us now is Karin Bosman, who is water infrastructure expert. Karin, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Just for people to understand, when Rand Water says is undertaking maintenance, what exactly is it referring to and how often should it occur? If you could unmute, boss.
My apologies.
Yeah.
This mute always confused me. Good afternoon, everybody. Your question, what does it mean that they have to do maintenance? In the press statement, they said that they have detected a leak. And it is a big pipeline, and therefore the leak has to be repaired immediately. Now, they do have a pipeline maintenance, pipeline infrastructure maintenance plan, but environmental conditions change, and then unexpected leaks can happen. And one also have to keep in mind that if we have severe changes with things like extreme droughts, or lots of flooding, that can affect infrastructure. Accidents can damage infrastructure. So there's even if you have a good infrastructure maintenance plan, there's various things that can cause a sudden infrastructure failure or infrastructure leak. And I think they are doing the responsible thing by jumping in as quickly as possible to fix the leak.
Yeah, quite interesting. To your observation, Karin, the regularity with which Gauteng experiences these scheduled maintenance disruptions to water supply, does it speak to infrastructure that is in good shape and working well?
There's a couple of things that one has to keep in mind. And firstly, when you speak of Gauteng as a whole, there are different institutions that are responsible and are at play. So firstly, the National Department of Water Affairs, they make sure that there's water available in the natural water courses, the rivers, the Vaal Dam and the system, by implementing all kinds of transfer projects and transfer schemes from other parts of the country, like the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. And then Rand Water abstracts water from the Vaal Dam and from the Vaal Barrage and treats that and do what we refer to as bulk water supply services to municipalities. And the different municipalities, Tshwane, City of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Mfuleni, they then have their infrastructure that take water to consumers. Now, in the case of Rand Water, some of that infrastructure, we say, has been in place since 1902, almost 120 odd years. And so to replace and repair infrastructure, you have to constantly have an infrastructure maintenance plan. And last year during the winter season, June, July, they actually did quite a lot of infrastructure maintenance on especially the older type of precast concrete pipes, the clay pipes that are more prone to disruption. And so, yes, they do have a regular maintenance plan in place from a Rand Water perspective, which takes water to the reservoirs. However, when an incident happens like a pipeline damage, such as the case on the O2 pipeline, you have to immediately then jump in and go and fix it. Yeah. Then on the other side of that, the municipalities who takes the water from the Rand Water reservoirs and distribute it to the consumers, there I think one can say that there can be some improvement in terms of infrastructure maintenance.
Yeah, now Rand Water says normal water pumping capacity from the Palmet booster pumping station into The O2 pipeline will be reduced by 400 megalitres per day for the duration of the maintenance period. In layman's terms, what does this mean?
I do not know what the actual full capacity of the O2 pipeline is. So listening to the numbers, I would assume it would be around 1,000 megalitres per day, and reduced to 400 means that they need to slow the flow of water down to a lower pressure that they can get in and do maintenance. It also means that the water is not completely cut off, it is reduced. And a reduced flow will mean that there is a slower filling up of reservoirs and can also lead to reduced pressure in the pipelines from the reservoirs onward, which means that the flow will not be as strong when you open your tap.
Now, the reduction of water supply into the O2 pipeline has the potential to have a negative impact on several rainwater reservoirs. How so?
Because the pipeline feeds the reservoir. And if you reduce the flow in the pipeline, it means the reservoir will fill up slower and people still keep using from the reservoir. So you need to keep filling up the reservoir. And if the flow is reduced that fills up the reservoir will fill up slower.
Yeah, Karin, could you just enlighten us? I mean, how do we as the public differentiate between maintenance work or lack of service delivery when there is lower water pressure or no water supply at all? Sometimes one has no water for no conceivable reason until you're told suddenly it's maintenance.
I think it depends from municipality to municipality. In our case, I live in Tshwane. We have a WhatsApp group with our councillor, and our councillor then informs us if there is going to be maintenance, like a day or two in advance, and then we can, put a couple of buckets of water aside. But I think ultimately what we can do as consumers is make sure we have good contact with our councillors and that we keep pressurizing our councillors to, number one, inform us of an imminent shortage, but also to ensure, and this is very important, that budget allocation is properly made for the maintenance of water infrastructure rather than for paying people for water tankers.
Thanks for clarifying that, Karin. Now looking at the state of Gauteng's natural water supply, the Vaal Dam's water level has increased by more than 21% over the past weeks to about 61.12%. And recent rainfall and overflow from the Grootdry Dam, do rising dam levels automatically translate to improved water supply in our homes?
Not necessarily. Rising dam levels is great, and we are extremely grateful for getting out of the dire situation we were at the beginning of the year when we were down to 24% at the Vaal Dam, because it would have cost the country an incredible amount of money to transfer water from the Sterkfontein Dam as a backup for the Vaal Dam. So fortunately, we didn't have to spend that money. Because the good rain we received after Christmas to the last 2 weeks really helped the country in terms of alleviating that pressure. So from an overall water resources management perspective, the good rains we got saved us a lot of money.
Karin, thanks so much indeed. You can conclude? Just quickly.
Your second part of the question, does that translate into good water service delivery? Not necessarily.
All right.
We need to keep pressurizing municipalities to spend money on infrastructure maintenance.
Indeed. Karin, thanks so much. We appreciate your expertise on this. There is Karin Bosman, who's water infrastructure expert. Now to this, the PAC is currently briefing the media on the outcomes of its 3-day National Executive Committee, Lekgotla. Let's listen in.
Cultural land have been transferred to African people as a result of the integration of farm dwellers' security of tenure and restitution programs. The PAC has advocated for the acceleration of the land redistribution program, leading to the inclusion of additional farms and adequate support for land reform beneficiaries in departmental operations. We welcome the Land Expropriation Act and are committed to working hard towards its implementation. Furthermore, we express our heartfelt condolences to the families of the 9 soldiers who tragically lost their lives in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Also, PAC sends heartfelt condolences to the family, friends and relatives of the late Queen Dreikat of the Khoisan. Her funeral service is on Saturday, 1st February 2025 in Gqeberha, Eastern Cape. As we look ahead, the PAC encourages the Minister to propose policy alternatives that include initiating a bill on land restoration and the payment of reparations towards land restitution. The PAC open door policy has led to conversations with a wide variety of social movements and interest groups to begin and sustainable national dialogue for the people to resolve their own problems. We also take this opportunity to congratulate the class of 2024 on their metric results and wish them all the best in their future endeavors. We have noted with regret the proliferation of corruption in government and will use our position in government to combat this scourge. Lastly, we express our support for BRICS and stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, supporting ceasefire in the Middle East and for a Palestinian state to be established. In conclusion, the PAC stands ready to navigate the complexities of our political environment and leverage our position within the executive branch of government to fulfill our strategic objectives. We call upon all members and supporters to unite in this critical mission for the benefit of our communities and the African nation as a whole. Isolate.
Africa.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we'll allow questions if there are any questions. Of Natasha and then Tatum Kobo.
You mentioned the issue of the exit funding. Can you just drop feedback? Can you just, for logistic purposes,
no.
Have the dates as to when it will be taking place? I like the fact that you mentioned the Expropriation Act. I'm not aware if you know that yesterday your GNU partner, the DA, was meeting members of the media, and they said that they went to clause 19, subsection 4 of the statement of intent, which says that any party that disagrees with whatever within the GNU, they'll be able to formally report the objection. They've already, John Steenhuisen has written a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa regarding the matter on the expropriation bill. I just want your comment on that matter. I also like the fact that you touched on what you've managed to do during your tenure in regards to, in regards to the transfer of land. You mentioned 40,000 hectares, right, of farmland that have been transferred to black people. I just want to know what challenges have you experienced in regards to, the transfer of land, maybe from those farm owners or whatnot, and what challenges, how do you seek to address those challenges as well?
Thank you, Natasha. Let me start with the Congress. This is the year of Congress in PAC, and the term of this office is going to come to an end in August. And therefore this NEC has asked the SG to work on the roadmap to Congress. So we'll have dates and everything else after the roadmap has been presented to the National Working Committee by the SG, and we'll take it from there. Secondly, on the question of the expropriation bill, maybe let me repeat myself that we welcome the signing of the bill, and as PAC we view it as the step in the right direction. So welcome the bill. But then on the question of GNU partners declaring a dispute or writing to the president, we will see when that one happens. But all I know is that there is a clearinghouse committee where we are also represented there by the SG and by the Treasurer, where we're discussing issues within the GNU partners. So they will definitely meet there. But as PAC, let me say it here, that we will definitely oppose that. The fact that there's a dispute, the fact that there's what is it that the GNU partners the objection will definitely oppose the objection, because we don't understand why anybody in this country would agree with an apartheid law that was there since 1975. And when that apartheid law has been repealed in the very same democratic government, some people are complaining. What are they saying? Were they happy with the apartheid law? So we really accept and welcome the fact that the president has assented to that bill, and to date it is the law of the republic. And we're expecting ministers to just implement the law as it is prescribed. By the way, I'm just hoping that the Minister of Public Works will definitely expropriate land and give it to me, so that I distribute it to black people who have been suffering since 1652 in this country. I'm really relying on him. He's the landlord of state land now. He must quickly give the land to me so that I give it to African people. Then, on the challenges within the department, yeah, there are challenges, Natasha. First challenge that I have encountered in the department was that the people, black people in particular, do not understand the importance of land. They would choose money over land. And that makes the whole restitution program a mockery. Because if you've spent 80 billion in getting the land, settling the land for our people, and that 80 billion goes to the previous owners of the land, and you give our people land without money, obviously they are going to fail. And if you choose money, obviously you are going to spend that money. Within a month you'll have nothing and you won't have land. Truth is, Africans, black people in particular, want land and money both, and you must make sure that we give them both. You can't give them one, because it is not going to work. Also, Natasha, this question of land claims, that's another problem that I've encountered. There are more than 4,700 land claims that we must settle, that were lodged between 1996 and 1998, the cut-off date. So we must settle those claims. And then President Zuma came and opened another window for land claims. And those ones were lodged in 2014. And right now there are 163,000. But they are interdicted by the Lamusa judgment. Because the Constitutional Court said then the department must first settle all old order claims before getting to 2014 ones. And remember, former President Mutlande, in his report, he said it will take us 700 years to settle these land claims. That is why we're calling for also reparations, and see if those who oppressed us and those who took our resources and those who are rich because of Africa cannot pay reparations, so that we settle those land claims whilst we are still alive. Otherwise it will take us years and years and years. So those are problems that we are encountering, Natasha, and of course the corruption in the department. I mean, when you come in as the new minister, and first thing you get is that somebody has stolen the money. I mean, from the very same people who are claiming the land. As you know, that in Eastern Cape, 9 people have been charged already here in restitutions. CPAs everywhere, whether it's Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, Free State, Western Cape, they are fighting against each other, fighting against the traditional leaders, fighting against their own membership, because these are communal property associations. And it also means that something must be done by the department quickly to resolve the issue of CPAs. Because you can't just give a CPA a piece of land where the traditional leader is in charge. Because it means once you give them title deed, they've got authority over that piece of land, and the traditional leader does no longer have authority over that land. And when he's trying to come to them and say, this is what must happen, they say, no, this is our land, it has nothing to do with you. So these are things that we must look at, because I also know that in 2017, when there was a land in Daba, with traditional leaders and everybody, a resolution was taken that we must review CPA Act. And I'm sure that is what we're going to do going forward. Otherwise, other than that, in this department, we are settling well and we are cruising very, very well. We are restoring land to the African people. Thank you.
Thanks, President. Can you go followed by you, the gentleman? And let's start with Adam Go and then we follow.
Okay. My name is Nteba. I'm with the SABC. Nteba is my name. I'm with the SABC. Mr. President.
Well, you were listening to PSC leader Mzwane Lenyoni. So they're reiterating their statement that they do welcome the signing into law of the expropriation bill by President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that that is the step in the right direction. And of course, PAC is against dispute by GNU partners as well. And he's actually calling on the Minister, Dean McPherson, to actually assist him to get the land so that he, Mzwane Lenyoni, may be able to distribute it to the people who need it. But let's quickly jump into this one now. Today is the second day of the ANC Lekgotla, where the party top leaders meet to discuss some of the important issues that are happening in the country. They are currently briefing the media. Let's take you there.
In local government, and a number of those interventions are related to addressing the cost of living. I will not go into that whole detail. Our statement will speak for itself. I am joined here by chairpersons of the committees that were tackling some of these areas that I've made mention of, and also joined by the rapporteurs, as well as presenters in some cases. And you would note right to my right, as I request Mutusi, that we get local government. Comrade Dixon Masemola is missing. Thank you very much. I will start to my far right, Comrade Parkstown, well known to you, is also responsible for what we call ANC Local Government Intervention Task Team, among the many roles, also, of course, as a member of the National Executive Committee. And he's just returned from Davos. I hope he has some good news for South Africa. Next to Comrade Parks is Comrade Steve Litzike, also known to yourself as also part of the commission working closely with Comrade Zweli Mkhize, and also a member of the National Executive Committee. Again, well known to you, Comrade Khosienzo Ramokgopa, who also is a member of the NEC and also our deployee in dealing with matters related to energy and electricity in particular. Then Comrade Masina, Mzwandile Masina, who is a member of the NEC and also chairs a portfolio committee in Parliament, Trade and Industry, if I'm not mistaken. And was also one of our rapporteurs. Next to me is Comrade Zuko Kodlimpi, who is the Deputy Chair of the Economic Transformation Subcommittee of the NEC, member of the NEC, and who also was chairing the commission. I'm also, to my left, Comrade David Mahlobo, also known to you, Comrade David Mahlobo, who also chaired the commission that looked at a range of issues from local government to water and sanitation, covering a wide span, which we're going to be speaking about this afternoon. Next to him is Comrade Hemima Jodina, known to all of you colleagues, also one of the key contributors to the work that is being done by this particular commission, member of the NEC and its National Working Committee. And then last but not least, Comrade Zweli Mkhize, Chair of the Commission and member of the National Executive Committee, will be expanding on those things that are contained in the statement. Without any waste of time, I will hand over to Comrade Zuko, who's going to read out the statement on behalf of ourselves as a collective.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlengi. Today is the second day of the ANC's National Lekgotla for 2025, whose primary purpose is to develop our organization's program of action. The development of the POA is informed by a review of the ANC's manifesto since August 2024, the implementation of the January 8 statement's tasks, key priorities that must drive the 7th administration's priority areas, and the ANC's context of renewal and rebuilding. And in this context, this media briefing will focus on the following 3 areas. Our discussions on inclusive economy, with deliberations covering industrial policy, mass employment programs, and the digital economy. The second one is on tackling poverty and the high cost of living. And the third one is on local government, with a focus on advancing water and energy security. The Commission on the Economy has discussed a number of interventions that are critical to grow the economy, with particular emphasis on reindustrialization, realizing more value from government mass employment programs, and ensuring increased digital access and investments through the digital economy. And it was noted that improved coordination is critical for industrialization and the economic growth agenda. And it was noted that for increased investment in infrastructure, with a focus on rail, water, and energy, support must be sourced from both the public sector balance sheet and the private sector. The financing options include unlocking funds that are outside the fiscus through instruments that enable public-private partnerships. And focus is to be made on labor-intensive sectors such as agro-processing, electronics, clothing, and textiles, whilst also building on the natural endowment in mining, oil and gas, and also focus on catalytic projects, such as the expansion of the electricity grid and our rail network. And the Commission has also considered specific support that must be given to Transnet so that it has to cope, so that it has the scope for investment, especially on expanding the rail network. The Commission has also noted the need for urgent interventions and solutions to sustain the local steel industry, noting its impact on other sectors such as automotive and the construction sector. The Commission also emphasized the need to focus on emerging sectors in digital technology, on new energy minerals, on new energy vehicles, and green technologies broadly. The Commission has also recommended bold upscaling of financing for SMMEs, including business development support services across all sectors. And on the matter of mass employment programs, such as teacher assistance programs, the community works programs, the extended public works programs, and the travel and tourism related programs, the Commission has recommended that there be more coordination of these programs and sustain them. There must also be a reduction of administrative and other related costs, with emphasis on ensuring the programs have maximum impact on the ground. On digital technologies, the Commission noted the need to increase access and affordability, as that has a transformative impact on the economy as well as its competitiveness. The competition also emphasized the need for enabling investments in the related sector of electronics, and South Africa to be positioned for the evolving opportunities in that sector. Overall, the focus is one of ensuring growth in the economy, investment, innovation in financing, particularly for SMMEs, and infrastructure and human capital development. Transformation remains a critical integral objective to build a non-racial and non-sexist economy. The key is on execution, founded on coordination and accountability, as well as leveraging partnerships. The Commission on Tackling Poverty and the High Cost of Living has acknowledged the deep-rooted challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment in South Africa, where we have over 30 million people living below the upper bound poverty line, and youth unemployment remains at critical levels. Despite these challenges, the Commission noted the significant impact of government social grants, which support nearly half of South African households, and called for further systemic interventions to address the high cost of living and improve livelihoods. To address poverty and the high cost of living, the Commission has proposed regulatory measures such as a fuel price cap, the value-added tax exemptions on electricity, and expanding the list of zero-rated food items to include essential nutritious products. The Commission noted that the rising water and electricity tariffs call for a comprehensive indigent register to support vulnerable households. It also advocated for increasing the supply of affordable housing and implementing energy efficiency programs to reduce costs for low-income households. The introduction of a universal basic income grant was reaffirmed as a cornerstone of social protection, while the welfare of military veterans must be prioritized through dedicated budgets and public-private partnerships that can offer them opportunities. For youth and women's empowerment, the Commission proposed re-establishing the Presidential Youth Working Group and launching a South African National Defence Force-led National Youth Service to provide skills development and employment opportunities. Emerging industrialists should be supported through an Emerging Industrialist Fund with a focus on green manufacturing, infrastructure, energy, and the digital economy. Women must receive land and other productive assets, and support for women-owned businesses should include access to modern technologies and streamlined regulatory processes. Integrated farming cooperatives were highlighted as a means of restoring livelihoods and promoting wealth creation. The Commission resolved to improve government systems, focusing on intergovernmental coordination to ensure integrated service delivery and the integrity of our social grant systems. Maternal health and nutrition programs, including community food gardens and planting fruit trees, were emphasized to promote food security. Improved communication about government programs via local and digital media platforms was also highlighted, alongside integrating the Freedom Charter's principles into national events. Finally, a robust monitoring and evaluation system was proposed to hold ANC deployees accountable, ensuring meaningful delivery on these proposals and communicating to the public. Then the Commission on Local Government outlined clear and actionable measures to address the critical challenges facing municipalities, particularly in water and energy security, in line with the ANC manifesto and the 2025 January 8 statement. These measures focus on improving operational efficiency, on governance reforms, and sustainable service delivery to restore confidence in local government. To secure water supply, the Commission proposes the urgent upgrading of aging municipal water infrastructure through the ring-fencing of water revenue for critical maintenance. Municipalities will also in-source water tankers to eliminate the influence of water mafias and enhance accountability. A financing framework will attract private sector participation in infrastructure refurbishment while maintaining public ownership. Additionally, law enforcement agencies will work with municipalities to combat sabotage, theft, and illegal water connections, ensuring stability in service delivery. On the energy front, municipalities are encouraged to develop plans for electricity generation, supported by smart technologies to manage distribution efficiency. The ANC also advocates for comprehensive debt relief programs that prioritize the indigent and the poor, along with decisive action to resolve municipal debts owed to Eskom, water boards, and other entities within the next 6 months of this year. A strengthened focus on climate-resilient infrastructure, disaster preparedness, and formalization of informal settlements will further safeguard communities against environmental and social vulnerabilities. In conclusion, these practical interventions, rooted in the ANC's commitment to the principle of the people shall govern, demonstrate our resolve to deliver meaningful change this coming year. By strengthening governance, capacitating employees through skills audits and training, and fostering collaboration with stakeholders, we are building a capable local government that prioritizes the needs of the people and ensures sustainable service delivery. These discussions are timely as we mark the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, which compels us to develop a people-centered local government and give meaning to the dictum of the people shall govern. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Zuko. Members of the media, at this stage, I'd like to turn to you. And you raise the question and the person to whom it is directed. And I will give guidance in the event it's a generic question. Shall we get started? Do I go to my left or to my right? I'll start on my left. Muluku?
All right. Thank you very much, Muluku, from ANC. All right. Maybe let me start from the energy or electricity front. And this is a fact that the President also spoke about, to say as much as you have made success in terms of making sure that there's no load shedding, but there are people who are still subject to so-called load reduction. Practically, how is that going to be attended to? And then I would, when it comes to you talking about labor-intensive sourcing, all these programs that you are proposing, considering the fact that money obviously will have to be put into all those things, those programs. Already you are being accused of really not spending, and challenges are known in terms of the level of funding. Where is the money going to come from, particularly as you roll out those mass employment programs? With regard to the role that is played by the social grants, I mean, I think 2 days ago, there was a judgment in the South African Court, which essentially said that it is wrong for about 11 million people who are excluded from the SRD itself. Surely, if that ought to be attended to, increase the number from the current 7.5 million who are receiving SRD. That also talks of the issue of money. How are you going to collate all of those challenges and ensure that money is available?
All right. Thank you, ENCA. Let me come to the front, Tando, and then we'll see.
Good afternoon. My name is Tando Mayeko from the Business Day. Just on the matter of expanding the basket of VAT items from VAT. The Treasury in the past has poured cold water on this suggestion, saying that it will result in lower tax revenue, which would require either reductions in expenditure or increases in other taxes to avoid negatively impacting the fiscal framework. How does the ANC resolve this? How do we resolve this? What are the trade-offs that the ANC says we should make? And then on the matter that the DM said about support to Transnet, how do you envision this? Because Transnet has already been given a 47 billion rand government guarantee. They've already drawn down half of it, and we understand that the Treasury is not willing to give any more guarantees to any more SOEs, including Transnet or ESCOM, or any of the other SOEs that are the backbone of the economy. What does the ANC say about this, and do you expect fiscal support to any of these SOEs despite the opposition come to the budget on February 19th?
Thank you, Business Day. SABC.
Good morning. Zulu from the SABC. My question is on local government. There are a number of suggestions in terms of trying to improve the performance of local government. Some would say that this is an attempt to simply tinker with a model that is unsustainable. The Minister of Local Government has talked about the fact that it's important to relook the funding model for local government, because you have a situation where there are just some municipalities that cannot, it doesn't matter what it is that you do, who cannot sustain themselves even with the grant. Is that a discussion that you had? And if so, can you give us some kind of insight into what it is that you talked about from that perspective?
Thank you very much. I will, for the now, start with this team, and and then I will have a second round, which will start the same. Let me hand over. I think the first question is best directed to Comrade Kosienzu. You just have to bear with us, the movement.
Thank you very much. Moloto, maybe just to make the following point, is that we have always accepted that the resolution on the the energy question or electricity question requires an entire value chain intervention. So the first phase of the resolution of the energy complex was to address the issues of aggregate generation and aggregate demand, what in our common parlance we refer to as load shedding. So we've made significant strides. Just the other day we made the point that we have reached over 300 days of consecutive days without any load shedding. So we have resolved, or we're on course to resolve the aggregate side of generation. And then we know that downstream there are challenges isolated to distribution infrastructure in the form of transformers and substations. And we know that it's as a result of, amongst others, a lack of investment by both the ESCOM and municipalities, the hemorrhaging of skills, the erosion of the financial or the revenue streams of municipalities. And as a result of that, they are unable to reinvest into the upkeep, modernization, and expansion of that infrastructure. And that has resulted in what we refer to as load reduction. And the Commissioner has accepted that, call it by any name, the experience is the same. Whether you call it load shedding, you call it load reduction, our people in many parts of the country are experiencing particular hours in a day where they don't have electricity. What are we doing to resolve this? So the Commission agrees that we have to start a program, what we call electricity for all. It will have 3 dimensions. The first one is the elimination of load reduction. So in order to eliminate it, you need to know what are the root causes. We know there are challenges, issues around illegal connections, bypassing of meters. So we've agreed that ESCOM will work with municipalities to the extent that municipalities find it appropriate. And we really want to encourage municipalities to look at this positively. It's for us to formalize everyone that is consuming. So essentially you build the necessary infrastructure to support everyone that is consuming. And then the second part, you are able to meter those so that we don't do estimations, it's accurate billing, and it's completeness of billing. And what that technology advancement will do is going to help us to ensure that we are able to extend free basic electricity. So there are households that qualify for free basic electricity, but they are unable to access that because there are no technology platforms that are available to municipalities to be able to support that. And then the last intervention is in relation to innovative solutions for generations behind the meter interventions. Before the end of March, we'll be launching the first phase of these interventions. We have started in Limpopo just to showcase, or not to showcase, I mean it's a real program on how we're going to accelerate this idea of achieving true universal access. There's 1.59 million households that are not connected to the grid or don't have electricity. So in theory, we have not achieved universal access in the 30 years of democracy, although we have made significant advances. So those are the 3 interventions we are making. So the next frontier, the same amount of energy resolve that we surmount to address and make the kind of advances we have made on load shedding, the same that will apply in relation to load reduction. So that's the message we are giving to households. We will resolve load reduction is our number 1 enemy now.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just get through
Yeah.
these ones as well.
Yes. So I will then have Comrade Zuko to take the following questions, the other questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with the Transnet question, Thando. The position of the ANC is that the experience of how we resolved load shedding is quite instructive. Had it not been for the 254 billion rand support package that we gave to ESCOM in 2023, we would not be here. And this was against institutional advice, so to speak. Everyone had sort of given up on the capacity of ESCOM to solve its problems. But the distinct thing is that the program was structured in a very detailed and specific manner. that intervention was to deal not with its overall company operational problems, but specific infrastructure intervention. So maintenance and upgrading the fleet that exists, and that gave Comrade Spulta an easier way to deal with the problems of the grid and get us to where we are. So the Commission is asking for a similar package to be considered for Transnet. So if you give Transnet 47 billion rands, you're not helping them to solve the large-scale capital requirements that they have. So they will draw down on that, half and complete it, but at a structural level, it's still far less than what they require. But if you give them a comprehensive, once-off intervention, if you listen, we're not discussing ESCOM now. No one is talking about ESCOM getting any money, because the 2023 intervention carried us, and it's carrying us into the future. The company can now start to improve its operational model. So we need something massive for Transnet once off. And it's quite vital because the survival of Transnet and its efficient operation is critical for the South African steel industry, for the South African mining industry, for the South African manufacturing industry as a whole. So we don't have the option not to rescue Transnet. So we will have that discussion with Treasury to make the case as we did on the ESCOM front, and we are convinced that the rationale of how the ANC is reading the situation will be accepted. That's on that one. On the VAT exemptions, of course, it came from the cost of living. It's the same thing, really. All of us agree that you need to do two things. You need to relieve households from the current pressures that they have. But the economics of it is also to free some money so that they could also buy more goods in the economy. Then you kickstart demand again. So the tax logic is also taken care of in the cycle if you think about it. So the more goods that are bought, the more demand is created in the economy, the more employment is created, and therefore the more tax revenue is generated on the other end of the equation. But again, we are prepared to get into the nitty-gritties of that conversation with National Treasury if it has to come to that. But we're convinced that everybody is going to accept our position. On the labor-intensive programs, how will you fund them? We did, Muloko, make the point that the Commission noted the problem of coordination. So these programs already exist, right? We're not inventing new programs, but it's about coordinating them and making sure that they give you the impact that you need. It's not so much to talk about new money other than to say, with every infrastructure project, for instance, that you are rolling out, you need to pair it with your EPWP rollout so that it is related to work that is being done on the ground and not think about introducing new money to the system. But I must make the point that, in general, depending on the fiscal situation at a given period in the medium term, the National Treasury is going to have no choice but to increase allocations to these programs. Marginally, of course, not as a wholesale thing, but marginally it has to. There is no policy position that says we are rolling back expenditure on such programs. The intention is to ramp them up, but within the permits and limits of the fiscal space that we have. The social grants relief issue. The intention of the ANC is not to increase the numbers on the SRD. That's because, as the name says, it's a social relief of distress grant. It was supposed to be a temporary measure in the wake of COVID. If we get these labor-intensive programs rolling, they should automatically kick people out of the SRD, essentially. So to resolve the SRD pressure is to get those programs going and also get the economy going so that it starts creating jobs. So I'm not sure what the court case said, that maybe 11 people on top of the 7 million must be added. But our belief is that once we fix the performance of the economy and once we get these labor-intensive programs going, automatically people will fall off on the SRD thing, because you're not supposed to sit there permanently. You're supposed to sit there until you have other income coming in. And if we get that coordination right, then we will not have that problem. I think I have touched with all the ones that were raised, not knowing what Masego will raise, but all the ones on the ETC at okay.
Talk about the local government funding.
Yes, they are going to deal with it. It will be dealt with.
Yes,
we're dealing with the economics ones.
Yeah, we're still going to tackle that. I am going to ask to my left, Comrade Mahlobo, to make remarks on those that were spoken to on local government.
No, thanks, Comrade Somlomo. and to other panels. Sisbu, the matter you asked, our view is that we are dealing with three interrelated challenges when it comes to local government, and you don't separate them. The Commission look at issues of governance. I'm not going to speak to that, but it also speaks to issues of financial position and viability. And it also look at the service delivery imperatives and parameters around the quality and sustainability of services. So that when I respond, you'll be able to look at how they relate to each other. When it comes to issues of funding, there are three forms of funding. The first form of funding is traditional financing for local government. In that traditional financing of local government, when we met as a commission, we agreed that there are a lot of inefficiencies, but there is also poor performance. That traditional funding will include the issues of the grants that are given by the state, whether it's on water, whether it's on electricity. Secondly, it includes your trading services, because you need to be able to sell the service and someone must pay. But it will also include the issues of rates and taxes. And the main issue that was saying, let's improve the operational inefficiencies and poor performance. In the main, we have said all these trading services, both in terms of the three interrelated spaces, we must ring-fence the funding, so that there is a prudent financial management of traditional funding. When there is that ring fencing, whether within a dedicated, what to call it, an account then, that money will be used for one component. In other words, you'll be able to use it for operation and maintenance. You attend to an asset, so you can continue to sweat the asset, then you can get money out of it. But the other component in the ring-fence budget for utilities or utility service, you can then be in a position to pay the people you owe. Remember, if you buy electricity, you must pay ESCOM. If you buy water, you must pay Minister Majordin and the water boards and so forth. But you also have to have a certain portion to plan for growth. That's how the ring-fencing model must happen. And we have noted that money goes back to National Treasury. In that traditional financing, a number of actions has been taken just to improve. The question of accurate billing is at the center. Many citizens are complaining about incorrect bills, faulty meters causing problems, and using the technology as a platform just to improve efficiency of billing. It will then help you to manage the asset, but it will also deal with the question of revenue management. Then there is also the question of illegal connections. In most services, there are people who are tapping into the system and infrastructure, whether water, electricity. When you remove illegal connections, we will have the capability of ensuring that the availability of the service is very high, but at the very same time you'll collect this. Then there is an issue around payment of services, including the debt management, which is the issue, which is the biggest issue. Then there's a debt relief. When Zulu was presenting on our behalf, Comrades Butler and ESCOM, they actually had to put a package on how to actually help. Sis Pemi, as a Minister of Water, she's also looking at the same, working with National Treasury, a case by case, so you can deal with the current situation. The second point on funding, we call it blended finance. On blended finance is where you know that within there has to be a funding of the social component and the economic component. The state will remain responsible for that component in terms of grants and subsidies. Then there's this one which is for economic growth and others. Therefore, you'll have to go to the markets. Then from there you use the blended finance. In both instances it's being used. And that's why we are recommending the issue of different modes of implementation, whether SPV, whether concessions and others or private sector funding. But when they come in, we wanted to ensure that municipalities, they remain with a sense of ownership. so that we don't actually create an impression that we're outsourcing that. That will help you. Where will you get the additional money that you need? Then there is also new funding that you can get now on the basis of what we call the climate change dispensation, your blue bonds and your green bonds. Very, very available depending on how do you do certain things. Those are the monies that are available in the market. And then there is also the role of availability of private sector investment. That's why we're opening up the economy. We're opening up the reforms, both in the water, electricity, and the other services. The last point of intervention, because we said they are related, is the availability of the service to those that it used to be there yesterday, but today is not available. Your intermittent water supply, the availability of electricity and others. We are considering to say that the ANC must push government to look at a once-off intervention, wherever they will find the resources, to deal with the crumbling infrastructure or assets as we speak right now. Because it requires billions and billions in terms of actually bringing back those assets that have caused either non-revenue water, issues of load reduction, and so forth. Those are the main aspects that we see. When you look at the question, don't remove the issues of the governance and the service delivery. They are interrelated because then they can give you operational efficiency and financial viability.
Right, thank you very much. We have a question on local government regarding the funding model. I'm going to ask Comrade Dixon to take that. Is there any other comrade? And do you have additions? Comrade Masemula? You can come this side.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and a very good afternoon to members of the media and members of the National Executive Committee. I think in responding to the issue on the funding model of local government, largely and contextually, Comrade Mahlobo gave elements of this particular policy process which necessitated the reason why it becomes extremely important for the ANC to give a very clear instruction to or a pointer to government to look at this particular policy process. The 1998 white paper on local government made certain serious policy assumptions, and 30 years into democracy, some of those policy pronouncements are no longer practical in terms of reinforcing and capacitating municipalities to be able to perform and deliver municipal services. For instance, the existing formula says municipalities are expected to basically raise 90% of their own revenue, and therefore national government, through differentiated funding arrangements, either through grants and as well as through equitable share, should be able to provide only 10% of that. Out of the existing socio-economic conditions that our communities are basically finding themselves in, individual households struggling probably out of the declining economic growth and related problems around jobs and difficulties that people are basically going through, it becomes extremely difficult for some of them to pay for services, and to a larger extent there is what probably characterizes that space as a culture of non-payment, which in some instances is not because communities do not want to pay, it is because of what they basically are going through economically and therefore impacting their social stabilities going forward. This situation brought unintended consequences where budgets of municipalities are basically affected and therefore infrastructure is crumbling, maintenance is no longer as it's supposed to be. To a large extent, provision of water, of sanitation, of maintenance of roads and other related municipal services, the quality thereof in many areas is basically affected. A number of municipalities are therefore expected to pass budgets which are not necessarily fully funded, and they list a number of initiatives which they become unable to basically realize. And all these matters is because of their unavailability of appropriate money in terms of budgets to perform their responsibilities. So therefore, the review on the funding model is basically a very long-lasting policy response that will have to provide a much more better relief so that the nationally collected revenue, it is shared amongst the three spheres of government, horizontally and as well as vertically, so that over and above the additional resources that municipalities will be getting through trading of services and other related differentiated funding models, at the center will be to give them certainty that the nationally collected revenue, they will be able to secure a substantial amount of money, probably equal to what provinces are getting. A formula will be determined most probably by your Finance and Fiscal Commission, which will therefore then empower these municipalities to implement their integrated development plans in a very committed way, with certainty, without doubts whether their budgets are funded or not funded. And as you rightly said, that the department made a pronouncement with regard to this matter. Work is underway, which is led by the Department of COGTA, Finance, and as well as SALGA. We're working on a draft document, and most probably once the document is ready for public engagement and stakeholder discussions, such a document will be shared. But it is not necessarily an isolated policy review process. It is part and parcel of the overall review on the white paper on local government, the one that was adopted in 1998, that we thought it would be very appropriate, and that's why the ANC believes very strongly that to build resilient, effective, and efficient structures of municipal government that will deal with matters of proper governance, resilient and effective institutional arrangements, municipalities that will deal with proper financing, and overall have a holistic, functional system of local government. It necessitated that the ANC should be able to drive this particular process on the actual review, and therefore funding model is one aspect of the review, because it will include review on governance systems of local government based on the experiences we have acquired over the past 30 years. It will basically look at how do we look at the institutional capacities, issues of the professionalization of local government to a large extent. It will be part and parcel of those areas of review of the policy, the provision of services, basically. What alternative policy measures we could be able to put in place to ensure proper access of citizens to the services municipalities are providing. So it's a very broad policy process. And we have just produced a roadmap with regard to this particular process, and I think we should be able to share such with members of the South African public, including the media, because that policy roadmap points to the need that in the next coming 2 months, basically, if all goes well, by the end of February, the technical committee that has been established, it should be able to produce a draft discussion document that will be circulated throughout the country, and therefore, as the African National Congress will therefore then embark on a very robust, if not aggressive, consultations on how do we want to invite South African people to make necessary inputs on how do they intend to see the future local government system being modeled in which way. And therefore, the ANC remains committed to see to it that we have a very functional system of local government, and of course that remains and continues to be our primary responsibility going forward at this point in time. I think I could just briefly comment in that manner with regard to the question around the funding model of local government chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Masemula.
All right, Dixon Masemula there at the ANC NEC Lekgotla meeting, which is underway. It is in its second day today, and as you might have had, clarifying the issues around funding model for local government, as well as professionalism or professionalization, rather, of local government, being part of reviewing the ANC policy. But before that, you might have also had Dr. Hosientu Ramakgopa right on that panel saying that they've actually made significant strides in passing over 300 days without load shedding, but the work is still on. Load reduction is as a result of issues with municipalities' inability to collect revenue. He also said that Electricity for All program has started, according to him. ESCOM has to work with municipalities to formalize everyone who is consuming electricity. He also talks about pre-basic electricity for families, but because of issues of internet access in some areas in this country, they are unable to actually have that pre-basic electricity. But that's one of the issues that's been actually ventilated at that particular ANC NEC Lekgotla. That's one story we will be watching for you throughout the day, as my colleague, I understand, Samkela Masego, is actually there, and he will definitely help us with all those details. For now, you're watching The Week Ahead, and we'll be back with you in a short while after this short break. Welcome back. Today we are exploring a crucial topic that affects all of us: financial security. With financial anxiety affecting 75% of South Africans, it's clear that many of us are struggling to make ends meet. But what if there was a way to break free from financial stress? For more, we now bring in Thembeka Mabaso, who is Chief Marketing at GLU. Thembeka, a very warm welcome to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Just talk to us about products that are available in the market that provide that long-lasting solution to upper or middle-upper individuals in South Africa.
Thank you for having me, Mahe, and a big hello to your viewers. You know, financial stress and anxiety are a reality of many South Africans. In fact, a recent survey that we had explored as a business says that 3 in 4 South Africans experience financial stress. Now, that's a huge proportion, I'm sure you'll agree with me. And the anxiety is really probably fueled by the fact that a lot of South Africans don't have the technical knowledge about financial products, right? They seem rather complicated. They seem, just too complex, and they don't specialize in those areas. And that is what we do. I'm excited to tell you today, Mahe, that a new financial services provider has launched, and we are called GLU. And our ethos really is about financial togetherness, and I'll explain that to you. Understanding the sense of anxiety, we realize that South Africans need a companion, so to speak, a financial bestie, the kind of person and company and business that you'll walk with, that'll walk with you and help alleviate that anxiety that you may feel. And so we have many products. We are a holistic financial solutions business. So if you're looking for life insurance, if you're looking for investments products, short-term insurance, we have that, and all powered by this concept called mutuality.
Let's talk about, some of the most effective ways to deal with budget in order to reduce the stress levels.
Yeah. Look, budgeting is absolutely crucial, right? You need to know where your money is going monthly. But I think taking it a step further, more than budgeting, it's really looking at this long term, right? What will happen in the event that something happens to you? Will your family be okay? And that is why we have life products at GLU. And then what happens if, unfortunately, you get a disability or critical illness? And that's why we've got those products as well. Having launched in the market, we're saying South Africans experience financial anxiety and stress, also because they do not know that their futures are completely secured. And this concept of mutuality that we believe in, that is our purpose as a business, says we're not a JSE listed company, we're actually a mutual. And mutuals are rather special because they don't answer to shareholders. So all our profits after paying expenses goes back into the hands of members, the policyholders.
Then you've got a lot of South Africans experiencing that financial stress, especially in these economic conditions we are in now. How do they then alleviate that?
They need a trusted financial companion. They need to be with a business like ours that really cares about them. When you look at the concept of mutuality, it's actually founded in the ethos of Ubuntu. So we're a very South African business. We're saying we're about the community. We share our profits with you. We share our knowledge and expertise with you. And you can trust that like a bestie, we will always be by your side. And that's what they need. They need to partner with people that really understand the environment of finances so that they can have their futures taken care of.
Talk to me about this, because I think it's an interesting aspect of this conversation. the significance of empowering, the less fortunate South Africans in this country. How does that help in terms of just making sure that, the financial stress among themselves is actually alleviated?
Yeah. First of all, everybody experiences financial stress. What we realize is that irrespective of what LSM or SEM group you sit in, financial stress is a reality. And so for lower or middle to upper income people as well, it really is about the same formula, right? Take your finances seriously. You have to know where your money is going. You have to be prepared for the future. Most importantly, you have to be part of a community that values the same things you value. You have to be with a business that really does prioritize you and your financial interests. And so for me, I think there's a legacy sometimes within the South African context where people want to delay things. Oh, I'll think about it in 10 years. I'll think about it in 5 years. We're saying the time is now to really think about your future and to consider what happens a few years down the line. And really that's what we're about. We're saying don't do it alone. Do it with us, the experts.
I want us to talk about the so-called emergency fund, because I think that's one of the most important aspects in this conversation as well. What role does it really play in, helping people to break away from financial stress?
Yeah. Emergency funds are important. Experts will say you have to save 3 to 6 months worth of your income, monthly income, in order to really have a secure emergency fund. The reality is, though, for a lot of South Africans, that really isn't possible, right? South Africans are living hand to mouth. And so with this concept of mutuality and us as a business sharing our profits, we're saying you have an opportunity through that vehicle to really also have something stored up for the future. So how our profit share works is after 10 years of being a member, you get access to 20% of the vested portion of your profit share. Then you get another 20% 5 years thereafter. So think of it as a little kitty for you to really build your legacy and secure yourself financially. So that's really important. No delay.
And we cannot not talk about the two-pot system, because, some people, got to be told or advised against withdrawing the two-pot system. Talk to us about that. And, well, others saying that maybe that could also be used as emergency fund, could be used when you need the most. Talk to us about that. What do you make of that?
Yeah. On your show, I think it's something you've discussed at length and you've had experts coming in. The reality is when you take away the money now, you are taking away from your future, right? From your future profits or ability to really have more money to secure yourself from retirement. So I really do believe it isn't advisable, and certain experts have definitely said that. Again, what we are seeing because of this situation is that South Africans are in dire straits. It's really just a reflection of that South Africans do need assistance with financial planning. They need that knowledge, they need the experts, and they're counting on us as business to really come forward and help them to live the lives that they deserve.
And what opportunities do you see in this market, and how can one really capitalize on that?
Yeah. As a business, there is an opportunity for us to make an impact and really just help South Africans understand the importance of planning for the future, but also to benefit from this very unique model. We are, at this point, the only insurer that is offering a value proposition of this kind, as well as our parent company, right? So this is completely unique. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for South Africans to really be able to be part of a business that says secure yourself financially for the future, but also build real wealth through this model and this benefit and this power called profit share. And so really those are the opportunities that exist in the market that we're really excited about. We're so excited about introducing this value proposition to South Africans, and we hope that they really benefit from this amazing business that we launched last week.
I want us to talk about the pros and cons of debt management plans versus debt settlement programs. I don't know if you can just expand on that and just clarify it for our viewers, just in layman's terms, in terms of how that works.
Yeah. Look, the reality is that debt is, many people will say, debt is good, that's how you build wealth. And other people, will definitely say that debt is not a great thing, especially because many people do not know how to manage debt, right? And that's the reality again. South Africans are in dire straits because of challenges with debt. They are over-indebted. In fact, I think I saw an SABC clip where one of the gentlemen withdrawing from their two-pot had said, I've got responsibilities, I need this money. And so I definitely think there needs to be a broader conversation around finances, building wealth for the future, and also managing debt. They really do go hand in glove.
Then how can individuals start building savings, when they feel overwhelmed by debt?
Yeah. One, again, I think you alluded earlier on to budgeting. Your budget will reveal the reality of your financial situation. You must build in your budget room to be able to invest, right? That's absolutely important. Again, planning for the future, which I think I have really reiterated here because it is important. And really that's how South Africans can start to build savings, invest as well. There are various investment vehicles. We also, as a business, our value proposition is that you can plan, insure, and invest with us. So investments are also important because you benefit from this wonder, eighth wonder called compound interest. And so definitely that is how you can start to build a really stable financial future.
Then the change of mindset as well, I think, would play an important role there, Thandeka. Let's talk about that and how important it is, talking about this change of mindset, to sort of help relieve that financial stress.
Yeah. So a change in mindset, I think, is paramount. It probably is the first step, acknowledging that you don't know what you don't know. Right? A lot of people want to be experts, and that's absolutely fine. It's personal finance management, but there is help. There are businesses like ourselves that are here with experts with many, many years of experience who are there to really just help and guide and walk this journey. And so for me, I think it's about that. It's acknowledging that you need help and help is out there.
But do we have financial literacy though, Thandeka? Is it even accessible for everyone in this country?
Financial literacy is definitely a challenge, and I think many, vehicles or companies, organizations have tried to address that in many ways. And I think starting even at base level, primary school level, high school level, and so on, it needs to be a constant conversation. I also believe it should be a conversation in the home, right? The home is where the values are established, primary values, and I think the value of money and how money works, the system of money, is also a conversation that probably needs to happen at that level as well. So I would say financial literacy is a responsibility of all of us.
And lifestyle as well? How important is that?
They say live below your means. Yeah. I'm going to repeat it, live below your means. That's managing your lifestyle, and that'll definitely help you to be able to build for the future you want to see.
Thandeka, thanks so much for your insights. We appreciate it. That was Thandeka Mabaso, who is Chief Marketing at CLU. We appreciate your time indeed. Now to this, an undetermined number of illegal miners who are believed to have gone underground before the intensification of the Vala Umgodi operations remain unaccounted for. Affected families in Kuma near Stilfontein in the northwest say while both the community volunteers and the state-led mine rescue initiatives resulted in the retrieval of 278 illegal miners and 87 bodies, many bodies are reportedly still scattered in Shaft 10. We spoke to Zinzi Tom, whose brother remains unaccounted for since going underground in July 2024 through nearby Shaft 11.
I never thought at this day the situation would be like this. In July, I never knew that it would be the last day that I see him. He left, the mood was okay, he told us that he's going, and then, okay, as usual, and there was nothing that came in mind that this could be the last time.
Zinzi Tom's haunting recollection of the last day she saw her brother Ayanda. She says 2 months later, the nightmare hit home with reports of the intensification of Operation Valumgodi.
That's when I went to my cousin brother, Johannes, and I was like, he never took this long. Then he was like, you're not the first person who came to report this kind of a thing. Then that's when we went to meet with other leaders. Then even other community members, they came, are complaining about this very thing. That's when we decided to make meetings with the police.
While some illegal miners were able to resurface, it soon emerged that others were in desperate need of assistance.
After the 6th meeting, we managed to retrieve about 1-point-something people. They came out, all of them in Margaret Shaft. That's when we came back, we found out that people in Shaft 11 and 10, they don't have an access to go in Margaret Shaft. We went back to them and pleaded with them that, can you please assist us? Those people, they can't retrieve themselves. They depend in people who are in the surface.
It was then that the community appealed to police to allow volunteers to assist.
The community was very angry, most especially the affected family members. They went to the people that they knew that they were working that site. Then they agreed, they said, no, we're going to volunteer ourselves to help to retrieve those underground who are trapped. Then we worked and came to a point whereby we stood in a 32 people who were alive and 9 bodies we already retrieved at that time.
By November, a government-led task team roped in a mine rescue team, but volunteer efforts were halted and food was restricted yet again. Tom says she was left with no choice but to approach the courts to force government to expedite its rescue efforts.
That's when we got a letter saying that we are sitting in 109 dead bodies. That's when me and the collective, I decided that my brother is there. I can't risk it again. Now I'm going to go to High Court and Concoct to force the subs to bring the machine, the cage, to retrieve those people in numbers.
As the rescue efforts continued, Tom remained hopeful that news of her brother would soon reach her.
Somebody said that he saw my brother 2 weeks back. My brother was underground, but he was not in a good condition at all. He told them that, no, I'm going to try to retrieve myself with the gators because I can't die underground. That's the last time that they saw him. Now I think I will make it 3 weeks.
By the last day of the retrieval operation, Tom was faced with a bitter reality.
I even fought with Comrade Shasha because he's the one who broke the news and said that there's no one else who's left inside. In that moment, I had to be selfish. I was like, I can't fight this much for other people. Even now, I'm not okay. Just trying to pray to God every day that I wonder what's happening. But I have this hope saying that my brother is still alive, because in Shaft 10, people, when they retrieved, they never gave us names.
Community leader Johannes Tankase says many more families are still pining for relatives who remain unaccounted for.
From the information that we got from the volunteers that were sent underground, when the rescue people came, it was that there are still bodies underground, more especially in the other shaft, whereby some of them, they were trying to resurface through the gators, but some of them, they lost their grips in numbers. As much as we are working with the communities, community leaders, there are some names that are brought forward to us, that there are some people that they are not on the list. We got the list from the police for information. All the people who have resurfaced.
Tankase says the process of identifying the deceased has made matters more complicated.
They said no, they will not be allowed to go individually. They must go there, they must make it an appointment in a group so that they can go and identify. But now, the situation we find ourselves in, some of the community members, the families, others, they are afraid. They've told us they are afraid to go and identify. I don't know their reasons being what. But at the end of the day, if ever some, they want to go and identify their loved ones, must they wait for other people to come so that they can go in a group?
Although news of Ayanda Tom's whereabouts are dwindling, his family still holds on to the hope that they will see him again one day. Sintle English, SABC News, Kuna.
Yeah, what a story. Thanks to my colleague there, Sintleng Lehihi. Now to this, the Umkhonto weSizwe party is adamant that it will take the reins in KwaZulu-Natal in the coming months. Despite the party securing the most number of votes in KwaZulu-Natal in last year's general elections, it failed to secure an outright majority. This forced it to become the official opposition when the IFP, the ANC, the DA and the NFP formed a government of provincial unity. Party leader Jacob Zuma addressed party members in Durban.
Umkhonto weSizwe is here to stay. And we discussed what has happened in the process of saying, here we are, as Umkhonto weSizwe. Also the importance of Umkhonto weSizwe in the processes of our political history.
Zuma has reassured party leaders that the party is still going strong. This despite the MK party having faced a myriad of challenges since its formation in December 2023, from factionalism and the jostling for positions to allegations of fraud and corruption against some leaders. The party also made a number of changes to its leadership and its representatives in parliament and legislatures. Party leaders say they've dealt with some of the challenges. This has enabled them to appoint a new leadership structure in KZN, the party's biggest support base. Former Premier and ANC stalwart Willis Mchunu will lead the province as convener, while Simpiwe Mpungose returns as the provincial organizer. The party also appointed regional leaders. Mchunu says they are now gunning for control of KwaZulu-Natal.
One of those campaigns is for us to seize power in KwaZulu.
The party says it plans to forge ahead with its application to the Electoral Court to have the results of last year's national and provincial elections set aside. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Durban.
Staying in Durban, some residents say it's not proper that the marital affairs of AmaZulu King, Mrs. Zulu Kazolithini, is playing itself out in public. The monarch courted controversy when he cancelled his planned traditional wedding to Nomzamo Mieni at the 11th hour and also revoked her privileges. This as he was facing a court challenge by his first wife, Queen Ndugozo Kamaisela Zulu, from whom he is seeking a divorce. Earlier in the week, however, the king appeared with Mieni by his side at the commemoration of the Battle of Isandlwana, which sparked fierce debates on social media.
The king's impending divorce from Queen Ndugozo in the Pietermaritzburg High Court has been a topic of discussion. He was married to her in a civil union. Soon after he filed for divorce, news broke of the monarch intending to marry another wife, Nomzamo Mieni, in a traditional wedding. But this ceremony was challenged in the High Court by Queen Ndugozo. However, before the matter came to court this week, the king announced that he was cancelling his wedding to Mieni and also revoking her privileges. In his court papers served in defense of the Queen's challenge, King Misuzulu, however, said there would be no wedding while he was still married in a civil union. The case was struck off the roll, but later in the week, the king attended an official ceremony with Mieni by his side, which set the tongues wagging. The SABC canvassed the views of some Durban residents who spoke on condition of anonymity, most of whom were critical of the king and the way his personal affairs were being handled.
As a Zulu, I feel ashamed because what's currently happening, we are doomed at this point. Because before, when it was Welithini, we did not know anything that was happening in the house of KwaZulu, like the Indlunkulu. So now what's happening with the king that we have, I don't see a future. Like, I see nothing. I see no way forward with him as a king.
you stating that you are taking a second wife or you are taking a third wife, you initially announced it to the whole world. But right now, you're not announcing it to the whole world. You're taking a decision that is actually profound. It's your own decision on your end, on your own findings, which is absolutely unfair.
This is not acceptable to us, that there are squabbles. This does affect us as a AmaZulu nation. This also led to other nations look at us as people who are failing to handle their affairs. This tarnishes our dignity as the nation. Why, when we are expecting him to take another wife, we have these problems?
King Mrs. Zulu also drew criticism from many quarters for the sacking late last year of his traditional Prime Minister, Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi, and more recently, his spokesperson, Prince Simphiwe Zulu. In the latest development, it was announced on Saturday that the king appointed Prince Kumbela Zulu to represent him in the Provincial and National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders. Lon Khateb, SABC News, Durban.
Now, moving further afield, Israeli protesters and relatives of Israeli hostages in Gaza have protested outside the country's defense ministry in Tel Aviv and from Hostages Square, calling for the release of all remaining captives. Now, relatives of hostages still being held in Gaza and their supporters say the return of the hostages brought them joy, but that they will continue to demand everyone be brought home. Yesterday, Hamas freed 4 female Israeli soldiers in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners in the second swap under the ceasefire deal in Gaza. 90 hostages remain in Gaza after they were abducted in a Hamas militant attack on Israel on 7 October 2023. And that's how we wrap up the edition of the week ahead right here on the SABC News channel. SA Today continues with news at the top of the hour right here on the channel. From myself, Mariketa Mtabe, and the team, thank you for watching. Do take care.